I'm really excited actually about this interview. UiPath is doing some fascinating things. So everybody, today we have Paul Ross with me. Paul is the VP of Global Sales Operations at UiPath. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what UiPath does.
So UiPath is at the center of a really interesting market called RPA, or robotic process automation. People think, well, what is that? Well, we don't sell mechanical robots like Roomba or anything like that. These robots are really software. And what they do is they can automate what a person would do, mundane tasks or things that are very repetitive that they do in front of their PC. Like, for example, processing an insurance claim, or doing inventory, or we even use it within my own function to help process orders in sales operations. It's a really fast growing market. And a lot of people are interested in it because it makes the lives of the people who are there more interesting. They don't have to do the boring stuff.
Right.
And they can get a lot more things done more quickly. So it drives efficiency for the business.
Yeah, I recently read you guys partnered with MaxHealth, and they're using your software to process thousands of patient claims at scale. Tell us a little bit about the scale part of how you guys are achieving what you're doing.
So, first off, you mentioned a healthcare company. We go across the board, right? We're in, I believe, 5 of the top Fortune 50. We got customers like Uber and Pandora, GE, NASA. I mean, just a broad range. And of course, healthcare companies.
Yes.
Right? And what these companies are trying to do is they're trying to get more efficient and trying to scale. And they do that by adding robotic process automation or automation in there. Now, what we just announced, we just had a big event called Forward for UiPath. It was in Vegas a couple of months ago, and we announced what we're now calling hyper automation.
Okay.
So it sounds really cool. What it is basically is you're combining the core robotic process automation with artificial intelligence, machine learning, and other technologies. And what it really enables our customers to do, and we've started down that path, is to take, instead of automating just simple tasks, right, like maybe processing a claim, they can expand it to going to a whole workflow involving multiple people. So now the software robots are actually interacting with the business users to be able to do their job, right? And that enables a much higher level of scale so that our customers can get more advantage of it.
Amazing. Very cool. Very cool. And UiPath was recently named the #1 fastest growing company in North America by Deloitte. Congratulations on that. How did you guys achieve that? I mean, because in hindsight, if you think about it, this problem you guys are solving was really eminent. The amount of paperwork and logistics and sort of operational tasks, as you said, the mundane tasks that people have to do, robotics automation software will eventually replace it. You guys have hit the nail on the head, had amazing trajectory and growth, now named, the fastest growing company in North America. How has that ride been for you, and how did you guys achieve it?
Well, it's exciting. I'll tell you, there's not too many people that have been at a company that experienced this amount of growth and scale so quickly. I mean, UiPath started literally in an apartment in Romania in 2005. We started making money in 2016, and it's been a rocket ship since then, right? So, I mean, right now we've grown to 5,000 customers. We have 3,000 employees from the original, like maybe 5, right? It's just tremendous. And, the challenge we have actually is scaling ourselves in an efficient way to meet our customers' needs. But, the key is we have a really good market. I mean, like you said, it's right. People want to be able to automate their processes. They want to be able to be more efficient. People who are working want to be able to not do the boring stuff and do the more interesting stuff.
Yes.
Right. And you can get all these efficiencies. So the market's there. In fact, we're kind of looking at it going, well, if you can automate it, it probably will get automated at some point in the future. Ours or anyone's technology, right? I mean, if you can do it, and then people will be doing the things that require thinking, right? And a little bit of intelligence on top of it.
Right. And as VP of Global Sales Operations, what does your purview look like? What's your day-to-day? What's your week look like at a company that's growing at this pace?
Right. So I run a global, as you said, it's the VP of Global Sales Ops. We're a global company. I have people from Japan, Singapore, India, London, Romania, here in the US, all over the place, right? France. For me, a week involves enabling my team, making sure that, like, let's pick this week. We're coming on to the end of our fiscal year. We're worried about making sure that the sales teams can close the quarter. We got a backlog of deals that need to get processed. We got questions that people have they're working with their customers. We're working on that. I got another group that's continually trying to improve and remove the friction from our sales teams and our customers so that we can deliver license to them very quickly with the least amount of effort. And we also are planning for next year. So
Right.
I mean,
so
this is
a lot going on.
This is my week this week.
And so, okay, so that was great. Thank you for that, sharing that. And so when it comes to alignment with sales, yes, makes complete sense. In terms of the customers and getting them to the finish line and these questions coming up and being more efficient with the licensing onboarding, what's your relationship like with the marketing, with the product teams, and how are you enabling the right sets of content for these prospects in their buyer journey? Also based on what you said earlier, which is you're not the only ones doing this, there's competition out there. You've made it very easy, but how do you educate, inform, and work with your ecosystem to make this all happen?
So it's interesting because sales ops actually is kind of a nexus point for a lot of things. I mean, sales will come to us. Obviously, we don't have to be in the way, right? But we're there to help them. We work obviously with our direct sales teams, the people that work with our channel partners, which are part of sales, right? Like you said, we mentioned we work with marketing. A lot of the interface with marketing has to do with processing leads because they generate a lot of our demand, right? And then we execute on that demand. There's a whole process around that, which frankly, we're constantly trying to make more efficient. How long does it take to get from a customer says, I'm interested in something to someone actually giving him what he's interested in?
Right.
And there's also, bringing products to market. So that involves marketing, involves our product team. We just launched a whole bunch of new products. We're shifting to a more cloud-based model. We got to get the pricing right. We got to shift from customers buying it one way to buying it another way. How do we not? So we work with those guys. And then frankly, for order processing, we're working with our finance teams quite a bit. How do we make sure that we can invoice them to make sure that payments are on time and that we're not inconveniencing our own customers, and legal, because sometimes our customers, want different terms than our standard terms, particularly if it's a really, really big opportunity for them. They'll want to be a little bit more. So we need to work with everyone and bring it together. And we have a group in my team called the Deal Hub, and which makes sense because think of the hub of a wheel, right? And all the spokes are all these different groups.
Right.
It would be difficult if you're a salesperson to memorize who to call all the time. Right. And to then follow up with them and make sure. So they go to the Deal Hub. The Deal Hub helps them with the opportunity that they're working. And they make sure that legal gets involved when legal gets involved, or doesn't need to. Maybe they can just do it by themselves, or finance, or if they need some marketing support, or if they need product support sometimes.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just a big operation. We process, I don't know, like 2,500 different transactions in the course of a quarter. So there's a lot of work for everyone.
Never a dull moment, Paul.
No.
Sounds like you guys are going at this pace and there's a lot going on. At the same time, you mentioned you're now moving to the cloud, you're changing pricing structure. There's a lot of retraining and education that needs to happen across the company, especially the people on the front line, the sales folks that are selling the product, right? How is that working for you, or how has that worked for you? I'm just curious if you have any insights into how that's been going for you guys.
So, UiPath's been growing pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
When it started off and we started actually selling, it might have been 20 sales reps, mostly in Europe because the company started off in Romania.
Right.
And we didn't really need much systems, right? You could handle things on a spreadsheet. Eventually, we deploy a system, a CRM system. But at the time, we had more sales reps. We started to get into the United States and a little bit into Asia Pacific, particularly Japan. And we started using a system. But at the time, again, there wasn't that many people. So we used the CRM system mostly as a customer database. Right? And everyone was kind of doing things on their own.
Right.
Then it started to explode, right? we're growing really fast. We're hiring people really fast. And we
Right.
needed to start to get people to be more standardized, right?
Processes.
And why? Not because we need everyone to do the same thing. It's just if everyone's doing something different, it becomes really, really difficult to process, you know, at this point now, hundreds of transactions, right? So we say, all right, yes, we have a CRM system. We actually implemented an ERP system so we could track our billing
Mm-hmm.
and invoicing. Well, then it got to be so that we had enough people to pay. We couldn't pay them using spreadsheets, right? We had to have regular grown-up compensation plans and a compensation system. So we implemented that. And as you implement these systems, they come with benefits and automation, but they also come with a little more rigidity in terms of the rules you got to follow, right? Because it works in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you kind of implement these things one at a time as you're going, and you continually have to educate our team. So earlier this year at our sales kickoff, we introduced a sales methodology so that we'd all be kind of selling the same way. Because if I did it the same time last year, we're very successful. But if I picked 5 sales reps and said, hey, what is the value proposition you tell your customer that makes us win? I bet you if I kept them in 5 different rooms, I get 5 different answers. And they'd all be correct, by the way.
Right.
But what do you tell the new guy?
Yeah.
Right. So we got the best people together with some people that helped us, and we taught everyone one way to do it. And we track it in our system. So one of the things in sales, you go is you inspect what you expect, right? Mm-hmm. So we want people to do things a certain way, and we whether it's how they do orders or how they do quotes or how they communicate to the customers or the format that they get their marketing materials in aligned to how the sales guys are going to talk. So it's an evolutionary process, not a revolutionary process to do this transformation. Mm-hmm. And you do it as you need it. But people at UiPath, you know, are kind of used to challenging the status quo. Right. So, you know, instituting a change isn't easy, but it's not rejected, right? Because people want to do things better, right? And they'll find, and frankly, listen, when we implement a change, they'll say, it's not as good as I'd like it to be, right? Here are some of the problems that you created by solving these other problems. And that's why I have a whole team that's working on removing friction. Right. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned your team being all over the world. So how do you, in terms of your leadership style, how do you lead your team? How do you manage a team that's, you know, that's in different locations all over the world?
The first thing I did is I put in place strong leaders, because I needed them to be able to hire the people and set in place what they need to do. Most particularly, I'm looking for people who will act on their own initiative. Mm-hmm. In other words, they don't wait for me, which is great, because they'll just do stuff and then I'll find out about it. And as long as they're good leaders, they'll probably at least 80% of the time do the right thing. But it's a whole lot better than waiting around for me. I can't be the bottleneck.
Sure.
The second thing is when I hire people, I want different people. Mm-hmm. Certainly different than me and ideally different than each other, right? Because what I'm trying to avoid is, even though my ego tells me I have the right answer all the time, I know I don't, right? And if we all thought the same way as me, we'd all come to the same conclusion all the time. Sure. And we'd all feel good about it. Hey, we all agree, this is great. But that means we'd make the same mistake all the time and we wouldn't come up with different ideas. So I actually like people who will debate me, right? And so that's one of the things. In fact, it's cultural at UiPath. We have a whole lot of really smart people here. Is we'll debate things and find out what's the right answer, and we'll base it on facts. So it's not, hey, I know better than you.
Right.
No. Here's the actual information that I'm looking at that tells me why I think this is a better answer. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's really good. And as a result, then you avoid the micromanaging, right? Because listen, when I was at the beginning, I micromanaged. It's natural. How did you get promoted to be your first manager? Well, because you were really good at your job. So when you promote, you're really good at your job. Everyone else isn't as good, so you want to tell them how to do it. But that's not a great idea. What I found out works a whole lot better, at least for me, is I'll set the boundaries and I'll spend more time on why than what. That way they understand from the why the real goal.
Mhm.
And they come up with stuff that I would never have thought of, and is usually 6 times better than anything I would have done. And it's
Right.
really it's empowering for them, but frankly, it's empowering to me. I just really get a kick out of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. You mentioned CRM, and I'm curious, can you share a few CRM initiatives that have helped you make the sales process more seamless?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you two. So remember how I said when we started off, we implemented CRM and it was kind of used as a database, but
Right.
and everyone kind of did things on their own anyway. So then eventually what you end up is kind of like a big ball of yarn for your CRM, right? It's just a bunch of stuff.
Right.
And what you really need is you want the CRM system to be there to enable the processes for sales that you want to do, which
Hmm.
means you got to kind of pick what your processes are. So we got people together and we said, and by the way, we got help. We had outside consultants, right?
Right.
But we said, all right, what are the processes? How are we actually going to do things? Because we're going to have to agree. We can't do it one way here, another way here, another way here, because I can't enable all of those. And then I'm going to end up with too many fields. It's going to be complex for everybody, right? Because
Mhm.
everyone's going to see everyone else's process. So we picked our core processes. How are we going to do renewals? How are we going to do upsells? How are we going to forecast? How are we going to close deals? All this whole thing. And then we re-implemented, I wouldn't say we took it down, but we upgraded and reconfigured our CRM system
Mhm.
so that it aligned to those sales processes. And
Okay.
as a result, it's easier to capture your data. It's easier to enter things. When someone has a question and someone's new, everyone knows the same way to do it,
Right.
right? So that's one. The second thing is we
Quick question on
implement,
that. How long did that reconfig take you guys?
um, I think it took us probably 7 or 8 months from beginning to end
Okay.
because this is UiPath and we're growing, at over last year we grew at over 3x.
Mhm.
So it's changing the tires on a race car in the middle of the race. So
Right.
you can't break anything in the middle,
Right.
right? And we had to do a discovery, we had to do an alignment, but most of the time was figuring out the processes and how we wanted things set up.
Sure.
And actually putting fingers to keyboard and changing it didn't really take that long,
Right.
right? And then there's educating everyone,
Hmm.
right? Another one, we implemented a configure price and quote system, which itself is difficult. Again, changing the tires on a fast moving car.
Right.
But what this enables us to do is to have a single way that we quote to our customers. It enables us to have a very consistent way that we can look at our orders and opportunities, to do our finances. When we want to be able to IPO at some point in the future, it'll make us a whole lot easier to adhere to the regulatory requirements.
Right.
So it's something that enables the business overall. And frankly, the challenge is to do that and not burden the sales reps at the same time. Right.
Let's talk about sales enablement for a minute. What is in terms of enabling the right content at the right time? You mentioned you're across all these different industries, and you also mentioned that 5 different of your top sales reps had a different way of talking about UiPath. All of them were right. So there's these different personas, there's these different use cases, there's these different industries. You're creating a process and flow that is doing it one way, one methodology. How are you navigating the nuances based on the persona, the buyer journey, in terms of sales enablement?
Well, the first thing we did is we got the best people together, our best sales reps, best managers. We got our best marketing people, and we literally locked them into a hotel room,
Yeah.
a conference room. It wasn't a teeny room, right?
Okay.
And we said, okay. And we had a number of questions that they needed to answer.
Okay.
What is the value proposition for our customers? And someone had
Right.
come up with an idea. Another person would say, well, yeah, but what about that? And then they'd do exactly what I said. It's common at UiPath. They debated it.
Debate. Yeah.
And
Right.
what happened is they kept shooting bullets at each other's ideas until what stood left was everything that would withstand all argument. And they all agreed to it.
Mm-hmm.
Took that and we applied it to a sales methodology and we trained people on it. But equally important, we had the marketing people in the room.
Right.
So the marketing content was now recreated and reformatted in a way that aligned exactly with that value proposition and exactly with that selling motion, so that what people got trained on how to communicate and talk to their customers, they also had materials that customers could read that aligned to that, so it wouldn't be a strange conversation. Moreover, we took our own systems and we aligned them to that selling process. So, you know, have you had this kind of conversation? Yes. What did they talk about? And you could put that in our CRM system, so we know what people are doing and saying. And when we're having conversations, the sales rep to their manager about some opportunity with an insurance company, well, did you talk about this? Well, no. Oh, well, maybe you should, right? And let's document it and make sure. And we're continuing to improve that, right? So this next year we're going to implement a system to help us template how we reach out to customers that are potential, you know, prospects.
Right.
We'll take our best practices, we'll apply them to templates, and everyone can kind of leverage that. Whether it's an email communication, it sounds the same as if it's a marketing communication. Sure. It sounds the same as if it's someone talking on the phone.
Right. You can templatize, and then the individual can customize it or tweak it as they need to.
Of course, it's got to sound natural.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any innovations or trends you're seeing that really excites you, whether as it relates to UiPath or personally?
Well, I think the big trend for UiPath is integrating artificial intelligence and machine learning into there are artificial intelligence companies, and they're kind of trying to apply it in general ways. There's robotic process automation companies, and we know what we're doing, right? We're automating these tasks. The cool thing is putting them together, right? And that's that hyper automation that I was talking about earlier, but that's really going to take it to the next level. We have a lot of customers. Like I said, we got 5,000 customers, but it's the beginning of the market. So a lot of our customers are kind of trying it out. They may be using it in one use case, you know, one type of task, and a number of them are starting to make the leap into doing it across lots of tasks or starting to scale it. But when you really get into that hyper automation, it's going to help them be able to leverage the full benefit that they can. So that's kind of really exciting to me, because you know, you see a cool technology that's everyone's excited about and it's growing really fast, and you think to yourself, okay, what's next?
Right.
Well, there isn't what's next, and we're barely touching it right now. So I think that's really cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you have a lot of superpowers from this conversation, Paul, but I'm curious, what do you think your superpower is?
I wish I had superpowers. I guess the thing that I think I excel at is I can get to the heart of a matter very quickly, right? Usually problems that are interesting are reasonably complex. Figuring out why this is happening or what you want to do about it. And in my experience, there's usually one or two things at the heart of it that really make 80 to 90% of the difference. And I'm just really good at finding it. Sometimes it takes guessing, right?
Right.
And you try a couple of different things and you go, that's the right one, right? And you get there, but you know, you look at the data, you make some theories, you test it out, you get a result, and it's very satisfying to me.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, Paul.
Raj, you're great. You're very easy to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and enjoy the ride.
All right. Thank you. Cheers.